Hello, I'm Askar Sherlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. These are the headlines. Nursultan Nazarbayev gives first lecture in the university named after him. Pavlodar court acquits the driver of the city mayor responsible for a fatal drunk driving car accident. The anthem for the upcoming Asian Winter Game is chosen through SMS polling. Poets and composers speak of violations during the competition. On Tuesday, Nursultan Nazarbayev gave a lecture in the Astana's university named after him. The speech sounded more like a distribution of instructions, although linked with the school's activities. The lecture was attended practically by all the country's ministers. The president asked them to assist the future alumni of the Nazarbayev University with employment, and also tasked the improving efforts of attracting private investments into education system. The head of state also spoke of the recent OSCE summit in Astana, branding it a milestone for the global community and mentioning the anti-aging research as well as the creation of the Vitality Center. Nazarbayev University is a national project initiated by the leader of the nation, said Nursultan Nazarbayev at the very first lecture he gave in the university named after him. The school is almost like the state within the state, which is made clear by the president, who used the opportunity to give instructions to the government. The university is not fully functioning yet, but Nazarbayev is already asking the cabinet to provide its graduates with employment. The name should be justified after all. This was done with one purpose, to increase the responsibility for its development and the development of all state bodies, the leadership and staff of the university. I hope that it will be so. Other topics covered by Nazarbayev generally touched upon the national education and solely its positive aspects. According to the president, this year Kazakhstan became one of the world's education leaders. This seems to really inspire the nation's leader to the point of setting a new goal for the cabinet. Now Kazakhstan should become the center for export of education and scientific discoveries. We are grateful for this university and promise to reach new heights. It looks like Kazakhstan will begin exporting its scientific discoveries with the opening of the university's Life Science Center. The facility will have best possible labs and high-tech equipment with the initial research aimed at anti-aging, as was said by the head of state himself. It will deal with the future of medicine, longevity and life extension. People of my age really want this to happen sooner. Nazarbayev spoke of his idea fix again among foreign colleagues. The special guests at the first lecture, including Romano Prodi, Alexander Kvashnevsky, Gerhard Schröder and Alfred Gusenbauer. All of them have long retired and perhaps, just like Nazarbayev, they want to extend their lives, although clearly not political ones. World news agencies still discuss the outcomes of the recent OSCE summit in Astana, although in tone quite opposite of the triumphant declarations of the Kazakh administration. The vice speaker of the South Ossetian parliament now seeks an official OSCE apology for supporting Georgia, reports RIA Novosti. Georgia attacked South Ossetia with the silent approval of the OSCE, and then the organization acted as if nothing happened, said Yuri Jitsoiti. During the summit, the Georgian delegation attempted to make all other member states accept the occupation of South Ossetia and Abkhazia by Russia. Kazakhstan, being the chair of the organization, has yet to officially react on the statement. In the meantime, Russian experts are univocal about the summit's results, pointing out to the failure of the goals set before the political event. The Moscow State University's Information and Analysis Center has recently hosted a roundtable with participants criticizing the OSCE chair and the summit in Kazakhstan.
The attitude of Russian expert community seemed to change overnight from overpraising of Nazarbayev's achievements to sharp criticism. Just recently, the general director of the Moscow State University's Information and Analysis Center, Alexei Vlasov, was a keen supporter of all plans and initiatives of the incumbent OSCE chair. After the summit in Astana, Vlasov said the expectations were met by only 50%. No serious breakthrough was achieved during the chairmanship or the summit. It feels like the discontent of Yerevan and Baku is actually growing. Political scientists say that the main achievement of the Astana summit is the fact that it was held at all. The discussion and negotiations platform for 56 member states operated for 2 days, although no one explained it was paid by the Kazakh taxpayers. This waste of money was not approved in Europe.
Саммит ОБСЕ, председательство Казахстана в целом.
They do not take seriously the OSCE summit and Kazakhstan's chairmanship in general. In this light, we can prognosticate the attitude of the old Europe.
Старой Европы в целом прогнозировать.
Moscow experts now recall the instability in Kyrgyzstan and shaky stance of the current regimes in the Central Asia. Even Nazarbayev's harmless initiative, like the formation of new OSCE institutions, is no longer supported in Russia.
Как именно будет эта система новых институтов?
How will this system of new OSCE institutions look like? I don't think we need to repeat mistakes of other integration structures like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It is expanded by adding new engines under the boat, so to speak, and these engines might soon drown the boat. Experts note that the West never reacted to the proposal of the Russian president to create the new architecture of the European security. Medvedev's early walkout from Astana on December 1st will be discussed for a long time. Nevertheless, judging by the assessments made at the round table, Russia no longer supports the initiatives of the incumbent OSCE chair.
To the other news, following a 2-month-long trial, the ex-driver of the Pavlodar mayor was acquitted after killing a pedestrian in a drunk driving accident this June. The court's decision was influenced by the conciliation of the parties, although the speeding and drunkenness of the defendant were evidently ignored. The judge said the driver committed a light crime, which really surprised many observers who still remember a very similar case of the prominent civil rights advocate Yevgeny Zhovtis, who was sentenced to 4 years in prison settlement.
Pavlodar City Court ruled on Tuesday the former driver of the mayor, Ivan Garder, is not guilty. On June 26, while drunk and driving an official car, he hit and killed a pedestrian. Under the first part of Article 38 of the Criminal Procedure Code, all criminal proceedings shall be terminated, since Garder must be released from criminal liability, based on the first part of Article 67 of the Criminal Code. Garder rendered financial aid to the family of the killed in the amount of $1,000 and helped to arrange the funeral. The main argument of the defense is the conciliation and the guilty plea. The prosecution shared the same opinion. We supported the petition agreeing with the conciliation. This means the criminal case must be dropped in accordance with the law. Civil rights advocate Yuri Pavlenko feels the entire trial was a farce with a predetermined verdict. The investigators needed over 4 months just to decide whether a criminal case against the mayor's driver should be instigated. The trial lasted for 2 more months. I think this verdict is far-fetched. Manslaughter is criminally prosecuted and punished in all countries, including the EU member states. Another civil rights advocate, Yevgeny Zhovtis, was sentenced to 4 years in prison settlement for a seminal fatal accident despite the forgiveness of the victim's mother and Zhovtis' aid rendered to his family. This and a number of other mitigating circumstances, like the fact that the activist was completely sober and driving on an unlit intercity highway at night, didn't help Zhovtis. The recent verdict to Garder is another slap on the face of Kazakhstan civil society. It can become a bad precedent, making drunken driving just a light crime.
Colleagues of Yevgeny Zhovtis hope the activist will be eligible for a parole next month, said representatives of the Astana Human Rights Bureau at a press conference on Tuesday. Briefings dedicated to the Human Rights Day and summing up of the year's results were held at the same time in the capital, as well as Almaty, Uralsk and other cities. The main topics covered were the situation with political prisoners and effects of Kazakhstan's chairmanship in the OSCE and pessimistic forecasts for the future.
According to the detention terms, Yevgeny Zhovtis can appeal for a parole next month. His colleague Anara Ibraeva, however, fears that the biased reprimands as well as the absence of promotions in the personal records of the civil rights activists could play a crucial role and reduce the chances of early release to a minimum. The organization still insists that the case of Zhovtis was politically motivated. Everything is done to isolate Zhovtis from the world and take away his ability to work, freely express himself and continue to advocate civil rights. Activists also talked about the pinched rights of another dissident, the editor-in-chief of the newspaper Almaty-Info Ramazan Yesergepov. Before the summit in Astana, the family of the exiled journalist asked the OSCE Special Representative on Media Freedom, Dunya Miyatovich, for assistance in the early release. However, Kazakh authorities ignored all of Miyatovich's calls.
It's not just the issue of Yesergepov, it's the issue of any journalist that is in prison because of the work that these people are performing. And in too many participating states of the OSCE, we have people
Summing up the results of this year, civil rights advocates said the situation within the legal field has markedly deteriorated. The authorities have tightened the penalties for journalists publishing information about the private life of Nazarbayev's family. The activists are also concerned about reports of torture in prisons. All of the worries over the deteriorating situation in the country were reflected in the annual report of the U.S. State Department. All of us, the civil society and the civil rights advocates, will have to start the work all over again, because we were pushed back 19 years. At the same time, the authorities are actively talking about a national 2-year action plan within the human rights sector. However, not a single issue has been resolved yet, say frustrated civil rights advocates. The presidential elections in 2012 are also a cause for concern. Public activists say this can further worsen the situation with human rights in Kazakhstan.
Businesswoman Kanagat Takeva continues her fight against the corruption practices at the customs checkpoint Khorgos. On Tuesday, the woman appealed to the President Nazarbayev for asking for the third time, asking him to help into the situation and shield her family from the pressure of the law enforcement. Interestingly, Takeva was forced to do so from the porch of the National Press Club since the venue cancelled her press conference despite the prepaid arrangements.
Despite the lease contract paid in advance, the management of the National Press Club rejected the briefing, citing low urgency of the topic and lack of press releases as main reasons. Kanagat Takeva, who submitted all necessary materials and talking points one day prior, was supported by the civil rights advocate Vadim Kuramshin. They both didn't believe the reasons for the rejection of the conference were genuine and felt the decision was dictated by the authorities. From the commercial point of view, the most important thing is that the space was paid for, unless there is some other underlying reason. In essence, we are the proprietors of the leased space since we already paid for it, so these lame excuses, they tell quite a lot. The rejection in press conference undeterred Takeva's determination. Once again, the businesswoman exposed corruption practices at the customs checkpoint Khorgos, this time from the porch of the press club. She also made the third appeal to the president of the country, asking to stop the unlawful actions of the customs officials and protect her family against possible provocations of the law enforcement agents. The first appeal was sent to the administration on November 18th, followed by a press conference a week later. In response, the financial police held its own briefing where officials accused Takeva of fraud, saying she used fake documents. On November 27th, the financial police launched an investigation in the matter and temporarily suspended Khorgos management. Vadim Kuramshin believes Takeva should continue fighting for justice. Our next move is the appeal to leaders of foreign countries and the EU Parliament. Our colleague Ainur Kurmanov is there right now, taking part in human rights conferences. He already has all of the case materials. Activist of the movement Kazakhstan 2012, Yesenbek Uktishbayev, also came to support the Takeva. He said she was the only entrepreneur brave enough to expose unlawful actions of customs officials. Everyone knows what is happening at Khorgos, but it was a taboo topic, so we have to give credit to this very brave woman, who is the only one courageous enough to do something like that. In the meantime, Kanagat Takeva is still waiting for the response of the head of state. She feels the customs system needs reforms. After all, Kazakhstan has been a member of the customs union for almost a year, and similar extortion practices can only discredit the country in the view of the global community.